Hey guys, Brent Hull here at Winterthur, Magic Land, Wonderland, the place you need to visit, the preeminent collection of American antiques and architecture in the world. And what you'll see inside is a collection of pre-industrial rooms and buildings from the Georgian, Federal, and Greek Revival era. Today, I just want to talk about high-style Georgian rooms. And so we're going to be looking at some of the high-style ones, some of the beautiful ways that they built that hopefully will inspire you as you're building with your clients and with your architect and with your builder so that you can build and make more beautiful things. The problem today, guys, is that we're working from a very small book of ideas. And if you look at the past, there is tremendous opportunity for us to be building better, more beautiful things if we understand the opportunity that we have. And this is all about opportunity. So, high style Georgian, come on, let's check it out. Okay, so we're in the DuPont dining room. This is a collection of a number of different rooms. And as we move through Winterthur and as we see these different areas and as they collected these rooms and different pieces, you're going to see wonderful examples of things to inspire you in your house and inspire you in your projects. This is a full paneled room, so we know it's earlier. That's typically Georgian, right? In that Georgian period where they would have full paneled rooms. Look at the cornice, right? This massive, huge cornice, 12, 13 foot ceilings in here. It can carry that kind of weight. And then if you would look down here at this built-in, and we're gonna see a ton of built-ins, the scallop shelves holding up the different elements, these beautiful paneled doors, how they painted it. So much to be inspired here, but just check out the details in this room. It's really wonderful. Finally, the door. We're going to see a lot of rim locks too, okay? So rim lock before a mortise lock, before the doors were set inside the door, they were rim locks. And so we're going to see a bunch of beautiful examples. This is a molded edged rim lock in brass, beautifully done. We're going to see some different things like that, but check out this room. It's awesome. Great things to be inspired by. Okay, so the dining room cross hall. This is Port Royal. So this is a house from the Georgian period, 1760s in Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia is the New York of America at that time. It's the richest city. It's where all the finest craftsmen live. This would have been a house that would have been designed based on Palladian pattern books, right? So very high style Georgian things, right? Look at the depth on that door casing, right? It comes off the wall almost 3 inches, the size of that chair rail that goes around. This beautiful, ionic full entablature over top here. A lot of great things are happening in this room, but I want you to understand that the Georgian moldings are big and strong and beefy, right? They were looking at exteriors of buildings and saying, oh, that these were what their moldings. It wasn't until Pompeii and Herculaneum and where they see the interiors of the rooms that the Romans lived in that they begin to go, oh, you know what? The inside of the rooms were actually much different than this. And so the moldings and the scale of things changed from that Georgian period to the Federal period. You'll also notice that there's a hierarchy of spaces, right? You know which room you're supposed to go to, which doors are important, which doors are less important. There's a height difference that happens between these rooms. I just did the video on the cross-headed corners that I've talked about. They're on all 4 of these doorways here. Is a very common detail. You're going to see them a lot at Winterthur, but it's something we don't do today, and this is kind of the lost art of building. I want to kind of raise the bar, right? So be inspired, see some of this stuff, and realize the opportunity of what we can do today. Okay guys, so one of the fun things about looking to the past is inspiration it gives us. This is a Georgian stair, mid-18th century, that comes from Salem, and you're seeing a bunch of great details that hopefully can inspire you. One, the balusters here. Then notice we've got 1, 2, 3 different types of balusters that alternate here. Remember I was talking about the organization of the typical Georgian or Federal baluster, right? So the balustrade, then baluster, is this little urn detail and then kind of a column detail. And now these are twisted and turned. There's some carving in here. Look at this bracket too, this long, strong bracket that's paneled, right? So sometimes you'll see the swirl detail. This is a strong panel detail that is really handsome. this handrail, okay? It's beefy, but you'll see details like the swoop inside here. And then we're gonna check out this newel, an amazing newel with a turned and twisted kind of central core. But look at the cap, the way the handrail comes down and then lands on that cap, and it just kind of radiates out. As a carpenter and craftsman, practice that one, right? Because I want you to look at it and go, how did they build that, right? That is one where you can look at it and go, how did they build that? So there's some fun things there that you can check out. Here we are, just, what is this? 12 steps, but magic happening in this little handrail stairwell. A lot of things to learn from, a lot of ways to elevate your stairs that you're building. The thing I love about this, the thing that I think this makes this so special, is that it is chinoiserie, right, in architecture. Now, typically, for instance, on pieces like this, chinoiserie is kind of the Chinese influence, and you see it in this paper here on the wall, and the Chinese Chippendale. China had an influence, and you would see in their patterns the fretwork and the detail, and it begins to show up on the furniture and even the architecture of some houses that were cutting edge, right on the front line of design. If we go down here to this chair rail, right, see this pattern and this fretwork detail is something that you would see similar in the fences of this paper on the wall. The pattern in here and the fretwork details on this broken pediment and tablature is Chinese. And so it's rare in America that you would see this Chinese influence in architecture. And so the fact that we see this here means that this was a cutting edge, top of the top kind of house that was built during that time. Notice too that we've got a full entablature that wraps this room. That's the architrave on the bottom. We have the frieze, which is decorated. So there's a kind of scrolling volute pattern, that leaf pattern that goes in there. And then you see this really pretty cornice with a fretwork dentil, the brackets, all this great detail. So what you're looking at is a very high style house. Remember we were talking about Port Royal and how far the moldings came off the wall. This one too is really big. That base is about 2.5 inches off the wall. The square plinth, typical in that Georgian period. If you watch my plinth videos, we talked about how this plinth just kicks out and catches this really heavy door casing that comes down. This is in comparison to the federal things, which are very light and dainty. This is very strong. Yet, we're in this hallway and it doesn't overwhelm this hallway. I wish we had more room to stand back and look at this and admire it, but you're looking at a wonderful house, typical of Philadelphia in this period, and one of the things that's so exciting about Winterthur. In Philadelphia on Walnut Street, right? And they named these streets Chestnut, Walnut, Pine Street. Apparently they had trees, pine trees, walnut trees, chestnut trees on the street, know where you were. But we just went to Winterthur. We just saw a bunch of those great Philadelphia rooms. This is the kind of house that they would have shown up in, okay? So this was a really wealthy part of town, and the Philadelphia Hall or the Blackwell parlor or the heavy carvings and stuff, they would have come out of houses like this. Now it's interesting, these by today's standards might seem a little bit subdued, right? They have wonderful entries, they have pretty stone over the top, but they are nothing like what we saw inside with the crazy carvings and all that fun detail. This is kind of typical that Georgian federal era. Now, we've got a Georgian townhome right there, and you can tell because of the way that dormer is made with the brackets on the side, the pediment around the front door, the stone keystones above, the lintels, right? All those things make that Georgian, whereas this one is very federal. Notice the side lights around that door, the leaded glass, all of those things are federal. So we've got Georgian and federal houses here. This is 1760s into the 1800s, right? Notice too the scale of these buildings, right? Behind us, you can't see, is a huge, 8-story apartment from the 20s. This is kind of the scale of the houses. Now, there's a William Strickland house, the Merchants Building down there. We're going to see Carpenter's Hall. We're going to see that the scale of life was much different back then. We just saw those crazy rooms at Winterthur and where those came from. And you might go, wow, I wonder what kind of house they came from. Well, this is what kind of house they came from. And you might not expect it once you see how elaborate they are on the inside. Okay guys, so we're in the Philadelphia area again. This is Blackwell Parlor. And the other day we were in Philadelphia standing on Walnut Street looking at some Georgian and Federal houses. Now Pine, Walnut Street, Chestnut Street are all right there near Carpenter's Hall. Those were the houses that this kind of room came from. 1760s, this is called the Blackwell Parlor. Look at the high-end carving here. I mean, this is English level of decoration. And if you've been through English houses of this period, heavily decorated, heavily ornamented, and carved richly like this. And so this would have been a merchant, a wealthy person trying to bring as much of England to America as he could. The organization of these carvings is very high level, right? It's very inspired. And the carving on the mantle is also furniture grade. It wasn't just anybody carving these things. These were wonderful details. But you've got egg and dart moldings, you've got bead and reel, you've got cross-headed corners, brackets, broken pediments. I mean, just like the top of your game to try to match and build these kind of details. We're in Port Royal. Okay, this is a 1760s house from Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia. It was a country estate. This is, again, a very high-style Georgian house. The moldings are off the wall 3 inches, and we have architectural details in here that kind of speak to that Georgian period. Now, one thing you'll notice is this paneled wainscot. Remember, in the Georgian period, we have raised panels, so you have a paneled wainscot, but look how it unifies the room, how it runs around, it ties the windowsills together, it establishes this grounding height in this room and helps us organize it. Look too at the mantle and overmantle. I'm hopeful that you're beginning to see some common patterns of the way they used to build and the way they used to organize moldings, in that you've got this marble surround, which becomes kind of your architrave, cross-headed corner, then you've got a bracket above the cross-headed corner that establishes your frieze, and then a cornice on top of it. Notice too that you've got a pilaster and a little mini entablature over top of that overmantle. So the organization, and once you understand the classical system of building, you can begin to put these things together, and you'll note how the proportions of those moldings all correspond and how they work together. So Georgian room, big heavy moldings, right? Federal rooms, you start to get light and daintier, but these are still really heavy and beefy. Overmantle, brackets on that mantle, all kinds of magical things. And I want to take you to the entrance hall, because you'll see this great space, this elongated space with this beautiful doorway and more great details from this perfect house. Okay, so this is Port Royal entrance hall, right? You've got these beautiful doors on either side. The wainscoting, again, think about how the wainscoting is going to carry through to that other room and starts unifying these spaces. The moldings, as I was saying, how far they stick off the wall, the paneled details, the raised panel, typical of that Georgian era. When I measured this room for the book, Traditional American Rooms, that door casing is 8 inches wide, right? That is a massive door casing. It doesn't read that big as you look at this door, because things are in proportion. Things are well established in here. And when you get all these moldings working together, they don't seem out of scale, right? Because it works so beautifully. Notice this full entablature that wraps around the room, right? That is your architrave and your frieze and your cornice. And because you have triglyphs in there, right, that's part of the Doric order. So we have the Doric order shown in this room with the triglyphs coming through, the brackets above, all beautifully expressed, right? All beautiful scale and detail. And I want to inspire you guys that when you build a space like this, it's not just about throwing moldings on the walls, but you are actually working on the size and the scale and how far they off on the wall. That base molding right there, it sticks off the wall almost 2.5 inches, right? That is a beefy base mold, right? So, but it works in the space, the height, the scale, and all these things work together to create really a magical space. So Port Royal, you know, very elevated, high style, 1760s in America. This is as good as it gets. Okay guys, so 1760 again, right? We're in the Hampton bedroom. One of my favorite rooms at Winterthur. The balance in this room, the scale of the moldings, this room works. And we've actually reproduced this room 2 or 3 times. And it's fascinating to me how we take an historic room and apply it to a new space with the same sort of scale, and it just sings. I mean, it is something that it works beautifully, right? And so there's a lot of fun things I want you to see here. One is the organization. We've got a lot of balance. We've got this center fireplace and the two hutches on either side, the cabinets on either side. We've used at one time and put doors on either side. The door headers here are pulvinated frieze door header, right? That pulvination. Remember that the door casing is the architrave. The frieze is our, frieze, that pulvinated frieze, and then the cornice, right? And so we've got a really pretty little organized unit over each door. The mantle has an overmantle, right? And so that mantle is flanked on either side by those pilasters that go up and then support the crown. The size and the scale of everything really work in this space. And so if Port Royal is the A, and Simsbury is the D, right? The very simple. This is kind of the B plus. And so you're seeing this change in the scale. The ceilings aren't quite as high as they are at Port Royal. Port Royal is something that would come out of a Palladian pattern book, right? This is something that is still very well done, but it just works in a space that's very contemporary, right? The size and the scale of this room is something that could really work in a house today. Okay guys, what'd you think? Amazing stuff, right? Those architectural details in there are the cream of the crop. They're the finest things from the past, right? That we can learn from today. If you're a builder wanting to build better, if you're a homeowner wanting to build something beautiful, an architect, a craftsman, in here you're gonna find great details, whether it's Georgian, Federal, or Greek Revival. So thanks for joining us. I'm Brent Hull, and thanks for watching.